If you're like me, you hate videos with long introductions, so we're here to figure out how I built this leather holster. So it's a shoulder rig I built exactly the way I want it, to wear exactly the way I want it, and let's go see how I go through the process of building something new that I've never done before. So the first thing I do in my process is I draw out and try to visualize what it is I'm actually trying to build. So I got a couple pictures of myself here, and this is the one I modeled my holster over. You see, what I'm doing here is I want to see the angle in which is naturally comfortable to me. And then what I'll do is I'll know that, however I hang it, the hanging points are going to want to be even. So, draw those hanging points on. And just kind of rough it in. I'm not trying to be specific of anything yet. Just trying to give myself an idea. And once I got it penciled in, make a nice outline that I can see. And now I've got the basic shape of the holster I want, which is exactly what I did here. It changed from the drawing, but the concept remained the same. Now, I'm wanting to make this not just utilitarian, but, actually be a part of my personality, kind of like putting patches on a biker vest. So I'm going to make a new holster that has this on the back, but I want to add a little bit extra to it. United States Air Force, my last name, it's my holster. I can do what I want. So I'm not going to bore you with me planning this out because I'm really planning it out here. So the next part of the video will probably be an extreme fast forward to save time. What I've done here is spelled out my last name and circled the middle letter, because when I stamp this, I'm going to start at the middle letter and go down from that in the rocker. Alright, so here's what I come up with. I wanted to have Stone Cipher on the bottom, Air Force across the top, and those little M's on the side are birds, probably eagle stamps or something. That's what I want to do. Let's see what I make. Alright, I'm back. I've been looking at my holster design, and I really don't think I need this bottom one like I did over here. I think I can get away with just these two top ones. So, my next holster is going to be designed with just 3 contact points. Now here's how I designed the holster. So I've got my picture that has the angle on it, so I know about what angle it needs to be. First thing is make sure your gun is unloaded. Safety first, guys. Then I'll place it on manila envelopes. They're cheap, they're easy to use, and they make pretty good templates. Now I want to leave about an inch at the top of my firearm because that's going to be folded over. That's going to be a contact point for the straps. As we can see over here above the hammer, I've got a contact point. So I need some leather to work with. So what I'll do, simply trace out the gun. Alright, so I've got the trace, but I forgot something. You see, if your holster has material that covers up that safety, it can actually push that safety in when you're wearing it. Some guns like this one, not much of an issue because it takes quite a bit of force to push that, but it is a concern. Some guns won't fire unless they have a magazine. So, I'm going to denote that the safety is right there. So I know that I build this holster my line needs to be right about there. Now, I need some room to put an anchor point. Actually, no, I don't. We're not doing that this time. But I do need enough room that I can either rivet or sew or stitch this bottom area. So, I'm going to give myself about 8/10 of an inch. Now, I've got a line at 8/10 of an inch. All I have to do is simply trace it out again. I've got perfect lines. Now, I will clean those up a bit. Now, another important thing is from right here on your firearm, you want an inch at least before there's anything your finger can come in contact with. So, I'm going to draw out an inch. Now we're going to want to make this curved right here. Now, I'm going to be trimming some leather here, but I want to give myself something to trim. If I tried to make this too fitting at the first drawing, chances are I'm going to have fitment issues when it comes to working with the actual leather. So at first, my holster looks like this. I will draw in the firearm trace a little darker, that way it shows up better on the video. There we go. All right now. So, I need a contact point at the bottom of the holster. So I'm going to draw on myself a little extra meat around that pivot point. The other thing is, when we look at this holster, you have these wings. Little brass piece on the back to allow it to be activated with the thumb, and over the years that leather's going to get a little weak, so the piece of brass allows you to keep pulling it as if it was day one after you built it. So we need those wings. Well, where are they going to hold? They're going to hold here between the hammer and the safety. See that? Safety, hammer. Now, are they really going to be that long? No. But you can always remove leather. You can't really add it on as easily. Okay, so now I've got the pattern for my holster. It's not going to look like this when it's done, but this is what I need to cut out of my leather. Alright, this part's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to use a ballpoint pen and trace out my new holster. Onto this piece of leather. These are leather shears. You buy them on Amazon. I think they're like $10. Alright, I've got my piece. Okay, now that we're back on the desk, I'm going to cut this right. Alright, so now I'm going to go wet this down so it folds a little easier. Alright, I started without you. So, fold it over. Give it that nice crease. Now, remember, I am putting these straps up here but the reason I didn't cut this other side is I want this strap to be longer. Now remember, this is on the back side. As in the inside of the holster. Now, I was using those for so long, I grabbed them instinctively, but these leather shears sure do a heck of a lot better. Now, I will tell you, wet leather will give that sewing machine I have a very hard time. I also find wet leather is hard to stitch. So once I've committed to wetting down the leather so I can fold it, manipulate it, and make it move where I need to, I know that I'm not going to be able to sew for a very long time. So, that was the original design, and this is what I've done to it at the leather stage. So we can already see that with the wet leather, I'm going to get some extra strap here because I'm going to get to cut into this. And that's exactly what I wanted. I want more leather than what I need for the final product. That way I have room to work. So doing some tracing work, I figured out I want to cut on this line. So I do all my modifications to the template first, because if I screw up the template, I just get them a folder and start again. However, leather's expensive. And I actually figured I would need more room when I started the first template, but you never really know until you're working with the leather. So it's better to have a little extra leather you can cut off than having a piece of leather you've already cut off that you need to come back into place. So that doesn't work like that. Actually, there is a tool, and if you're prior military, I can send you to your local base to get it and rent it. Just go on Google and download an ID 110T form and show them that form at the gate, and they'll immediately know why you're there. Don't try to remember that. Write it down. ID 10T. You're going to need that form. Well, as we can see here, I can also trim a little bit off the end. Maybe if I change it around like this. Alright, I'm going to cut that off. With everything lined just right, I had too much leather, which would fold over the barrel. So now, bring this down and kind of pancake it between. We got something like this. Now, another thing I like to do, just because holsters draw easier when you do, so I like to come completely off the rear sight. So I'm going to take a little bit of material, just right around here, off that rear sight. Now I could mark it and cut it, or I can use the press, and I think I'll use the press. Okay, I'm using a Amazon Arbor press, and you can buy these punches off of Amazon. They're like 10-15 bucks, not too expensive. Once I get it set up, takes a nice clean bite. Now, this piece of equipment is a bit overkill, but since I also forge knives, I have this belt grinder 2x72 made by Ameribraid. It costs about $3,000. You could easily just cut this with scissors, but I'm going to make that kind of a uniform shape using the belt grinder. Alright, now I'm going to use a Dremel and clean up some of these edges. Now, you see, some of these are not exactly flush. I'm going to go back out to the belt grinder and flush them up. You've already seen the belt grinder, you don't need to see me do that. Alright, everything is nice and flush now. Now I'm going to address the edges. Probably going fast forward now. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is dye the leather. First I'm going to burn off all the fuzzies. Alright, it's important to note this is my initial staining. It is not the final stain. The final stain will be done after I've sanded everything up and everything's been made to fit perfectly. So for now, I will just leave this open to dry. Alright, next thing to do, always check, make sure it's empty. I'm going to put it exactly where it needs to be. Lining with those straps, making sure the safety is uncovered, and I'm going to put a slight scratch at the top. Then measure the width of the firearm. It is 9.7 inches. So I'm going to take half of that, lock down the calipers, and that the other line can be just rubbed out. It's not hard. I'm going to take that to the sewing machine and put in my first stitch line. Now, let's address these straps. This is going to be under the arm. So, I like to hit the strap into my body and pull. So, the outside strap, let's see if I can get everything arranged here. Okay, so I've got to where the sight's clear and the strap is folded all the way underneath. So what I want to do here is mark the strap where I want to cut it. Get some light on that. There we go. There's the mark I put. Now, I'm going to take that over to that grinder and round it off. Okay, now that I got these straps cut about where I want them, we're going to clean them up some. And it'll look a little something like that. Alright, so I don't want this giant triangle up there. So I'm going to adjust this out. Measure about 3/4 of an inch. There. Pick a spot. And now just kind of mark out where I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut out a section about like that. Now, as we can see, that's a pretty ragged cut. So what I'm going to do is take this back out to that grinding machine and clean that up a bit. Alright, so now that it's cleaned up and flush, find this edge that hit the floor. And then in the next part, I'm going to re-wet this and get it to the shape of the firearm a little bit more exact. And then I will sew in this section here. Okay, so the next part, you're going to want to wrap your gun in saran wrap. Because that's what I do, protect it from the moisture. Get it exactly where it needs to be. And then start pressing it into the wet leather. Now, I'm going to be using this boning knife and really pressing things in as I watch a TV show. So, the next part's going to be off camera, but I will show you the finished result. Okay, now that I've got the shape of firearm into the leather, I know where I need to stitch it. So that's what I'm going to do. after getting that sorted, let's sew the rest of this. Another bit of firearm safety. You might want to keep your gun unloaded when working with one of these machines because you might be tempted to shoot it. Now back to the mess on the table. I'm going to use some of this weird Ghostbusters ectoplasm. Slicker than snot. And work on burnishing these edges. Now, I've burnished a lot of edges with this thing, but we're going to go outside and use the drill press. Okay, so I got this nifty little tool off Amazon, and we're going to use it to burnish the edges. Stand outside, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to poke a hole in this right about where the snap needs to go. So there we go. Nice clean hole. Alright, next I'm going to put this button snap in. Just 2 pieces here. Now using this tool I also got on Amazon. I'm going to set it up 2 pieces. This. There we go. It's set. Now we will press this other side. And it'll leave a nice little indentation showing us where we need to put the other hole. Now, before I go ahead and put in the other side of the snap, I need to put the brass piece on there. So I'm going to have to make that. Now, I need about 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch. So let's go make that out of brass. I get these brass sheets off Amazon as well. Can't remember the thickness. But I just cut out a little piece, and then I'll take it over to that grinder and shape it to the shape that I need. So this video is getting long enough. Really didn't think you needed to see how to drill holes in thin metal. But now that I've got it cut out, I'm going to use my tool here. And attach the snap. Now the next thing I'm going to attach is a brass rivet right there. Ain't nothing really special here. Just attach the head of the rivet, smash it with a hammer. That got something that almost looks like a holster.